Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So I have just turned 28 years old, and so I thought I would do a little roundup of 28 lessons from 28 years. It's gonna be a bit rambly, but hey, let's just go for it. And we'll start with lesson number 1, which is the idea of setting intentional defaults. A lot of our behavior tends to be governed by defaults, like the things that we've always done, or habits, some people might say. I don't find the phrasing of habits to be particularly helpful, because habits feel like a thing that you have to build up, and it's like feels like work to build a habit. Whereas I love the idea of setting a default. And one default in particular that I've been thinking about recently is when I have a spare hour of time in the evening, what is the thing that I default to? And usually that thing is something to do with work. These days I'm writing a book, so I'll often try and make progress on the book, or maybe try and think about writing a YouTube video or speaking to someone on the team on Slack. But I was reading an article by Clayton Christensen in the Harvard Business Review called How Will You Measure Your Life? Which basically talked about how if I were to spend that 1 hour of extra time each day instead working on either my health or relationships, and that was the intentional default, then how different would my life be? Like an extra hour of progress on my book or on making a freaking YouTube video for this channel isn't really gonna have a big impact at all. Like I don't struggle to get work done. I already spend 8 to 10 to 12 hours of the day working. But an extra hour of the day spent trying to reconnect with friends or do something intentional with relationships, that has a big impact. And I've been testing this out over the last couple of weeks, where in that 1 hour slot, I will go through my WhatsApps and reply to unread messages. Or, the other day I organized a little birthday kind of celebration and had a few friends come over for brunch. And all of that I managed to organize in the space of about 20 minutes. Whereas before I didn't, if I hadn't been thinking intentionally about like, what is the default action here? What progress can I make on the relationships and friendships front? I probably wouldn't have done that, because I would be like, birthday, I don't really care about birthdays, it's all good. But it was great, and I'm really glad I did that. And so, as I'm sitting here reflecting on this, I'm thinking, it's a Saturday, I've got some time after this. I should actually, instead of thinking, I'll make some more progress on my book, because I've already done 4,000 words today, instead just think, let's spend half an hour to think about how I can reconnect with a friend who I haven't spoken to in a while. So, intentional defaults. Secondly, I want to talk about the idea of lowering the bar. This is quite nice place. The idea of lowering the bar. And I find that this has been one of my main strategies for dealing with procrastination, in that if I'm struggling with procrastination of any sort, usually it's because my standards are too high, and usually because I am trying to be too much of a perfectionist. And one of the phrases I like from writers is, there is no such thing as writer's block. There is only like perfectionism, or something like that. And I think something that Seth Godin says, which I find quite helpful, is like, if you think you have writer's block and you can't do the thing, then show me all of the bad writing that you've done. And usually chances are you haven't done any bad writing, because your standards have been so high, your perfectionism has been so high that you just haven't created the thing. And in the context of making a YouTube video like this one, and in the context of starting a podcast or a business, or making progress with an essay or an assignment or anything, if we're finding ourselves unable to start, I find that for me at least, telling myself, just lower the bar, embrace mediocrity, like just try and embrace that this thing is going to suck, and that's okay, because once you get started, then it's way easier to continue going. Newton's first law, the law of inertia, an object at rest continues to stay at rest, but an object in motion tends to continue to stay in motion. And so I find that lowering the bar helps me at least get started being in motion. All right, number 3 is somewhat related, and that's the idea of embracing mediocrity in certain things in our life. I really like this idea from Oliver Burkeman's fantastic book, 4,000 Weeks, which we've got a video about linked over there, and the podcast interview that I did with him is sick. That'll be linked down below for the Deep Dive podcast. By the way, did you know I actually have a podcast? I interview people. It's cool, link down below. Anyway, his whole idea is that when we, in the world of productivity and stuff, we think that if I just had the right tools and systems and processes and discipline, I would be able to do all of the things. But his whole spiel in the book, which I completely agree with, is that time is finite. We're gonna die at some point. There physically are not enough hours in the day to do all of the really important things that we want to do. And therefore we just have to embrace mediocrity in certain parts of our life. So for me, I have embraced mediocrity in the sense that work-wise, I know I'm not gonna take my website seriously. Probably could. I also know I'm not really going to take TikTok seriously. I probably could. I also know I'm not going to be overly active on LinkedIn. That's easy things on the work front. Those are the things that I choose to be mediocre at. But in my personal life, again, I have dozens and dozens and dozens of unread messages on WhatsApp, and I've just embraced mediocrity in that I just suck at replying to those. In my intentional default time, I might get around to it at some point and be 2 months later, I'll reply to a friend being like, hey, let's arrange to meet up, because I like meeting up rather than text messages. But I've just embraced mediocrity in that side of my life, and I'm not beating myself up because I suck at replying to text messages or anything like that. And I think that was a really nice thing that I got from Oliver Burkeman's book. Next on the life lessons list, we have the idea that studying or working or just living life with a background music track is actually pretty fun and makes life a lot more high energy. When I was living in Cambridge and I had my kind of Alexa smart speaker systems and stuff set up, anytime I'd wake up and I'd just be roaming around the house, I would always just like, ooh, I can kind of do this. Yeah, whenever I'd be roaming around the house, I'd be playing some kind of background music of some kind, like, you know, Alexa, I'll play my liked songs on Spotify, or play songs by One Direction, or Take That, or Taylor Swift, or Ed Sheeran, or anything. There's something about having music in the background that just really, really energized me. And I've noticed since moving to London, where we've kind of got an Amazon Echo, like an Alexa set up in the living room, but I don't have one in the bedroom, and it's just like, just a little bit more friction because I haven't gotten around to setting up all the things, where now I actually don't have that much background music in my life. And I'm not sure, but like I do find that my energy levels when I'm around the house are lower than they were when I was living in Cambridge. And similarly, when I go to the studio, we have like a big Amazon Echo studio there, and sometimes the music is off just by default because it's just off. And I find like, why am I struggling to do this thing? Or like, you know, write a script for a video or whatever. And then I think, oh, there's no music. And then I turn the music on. And then suddenly it's like there's like an injection of energy into the room. I don't know. I just find that if I'm feeling low on energy, if I'm feeling like I'm struggling with a thing, putting on some kind of music just seems to help. Next, we have a very standard life lesson that everyone who is aware of personal development and stuff knows, but always needs reminding of, including me, which is that consistency and quantity generally leads to quality. You know, if you want to get good at painting, then just do 100 paintings. If you want to get good at making YouTube videos, make 100 videos, and they're going to suck, but like you'll get better at making them. I think I made this mistake when I was dabbling with songwriting, where I would be like really precious about like a single song and just be like, oh, I need to get this perfect, I need to get this good. And so far, I don't know, I've written maybe 0.5 songs because I haven't embraced this attitude of just like quantity leads to quality. And if I want to take something seriously, just got to do that. Even when it comes to going to the gym, just like, you know, putting in the consistency is in a way more important than like an individual workout being like particularly good. So generally when it comes to the gym as well, I just tell myself that as long as I've gotten to the gym and lifted at least one thing, then that's a win. And I will log that in my app. I use the app Strong, by the way, which is great for tracking workouts, not sponsored. And as long as I've done at least one thing, that counts. That's legit. And that helps me kind of maintain consistency with the gym a little bit more, even though that's still something I very much struggle with. The other thing that quantity and consistency leads to is creativity. Seth Godin, for example, used him as an example a couple of times. He has had a daily blog, like a vlog with a B, since like 1995 or something. So for the last like 25 years, he has been writing every day. And there's something sick about that. Like the more you do the thing, in a way, the more creativity flows from you. And, you know, I think Ed Sheeran does this in songwriting, Neil Gaiman does this in writing, where it's like, in order to be creative, you have to let all of the crap flow out first. Kind of like if you have crap in your plumbing system. If you want the clean water to come in, you have to get rid of all the junk first. And getting rid of all the junk first requires you to just have a lot of ideas. And so I think I've really found this when it comes to doing anything daily in terms of like content or anything creative, just I found makes me way more creative than I would be otherwise. Life lesson number 7, changing gears, is that sending physical thank you notes feels really good for me and also for the person who I've sent the physical thank you note to. And so I have a little stack of thank you cards with stamps and envelopes. And I haven't yet found a post box that's close enough to my house that makes it super low friction, but there's something about sending a handwritten note that just feels amazing. And with our YouTuber Academy, we send handwritten notes to all our students and they freaking love it and it's great. Yeah, handwritten notes, fantastic stuff. Next we have the idea, the life lesson, the philosophy that planning and doing are two different modes of operation. One metaphor I like to use that my brother came up with is the pilot and the plane. At some moments of the day, we should be the pilot, where we're trying to figure out and we're planning what to do with our day. But then for the rest of the day, we should be the plane, i.e. we're just executing on the orders of the pilot. We're not trying to think about it too hard. It's when, at least for me, and I found this for my students as well, it's like when we try and be the pilot and the plane at the same time, in the same sitting, it's actually quite hard to get started. Like, that's where procrastination really strikes. If it's like, oh, I need to, I don't know, learn Japanese. And it's like, okay, we'll work on my Japanese. Where it's like, I haven't planned what that actually looks like. I don't actually know what I'm doing. I don't have clarity on what that objective is. I haven't done the pilot stuff. And that means when I sit down to learn Japanese or improve my Mandarin or whatever the thing I'm working on, I don't do anything because I'm like, oh, it's just too much of a faff. It's like going to the gym and not having a plan. I don't want to come up with the plan when I'm at the gym, because then I'll just sit on my phone and scroll because it's way too hard. But if before going to the gym, I can come up with a plan and be like, all right, once I get to the gym, here are the things I'm going to do. Then when I'm at the gym, I can just be the plane and I can theoretically execute on the orders of the pilot. So I find that separating planning and doing has been really helpful for me in terms of beating procrastination. And next we have the idea of choosing to be satisfied. Like a bunch of other, like, I don't know, high achieving productivity bro enthusiasts, I tend to get to the end of the day and often feel as if I haven't done enough. Like I could have done more, I could have been more efficient, more productive, I could have worked on something more meaningful, could have spent less time scrolling through social media. That's just a bit of a weird thought pattern because me feeling dissatisfied with what I've done doesn't actually change what I've done. It doesn't change the reality, it just makes me feel bad. And so if instead I can just simply choose to feel satisfied with the progress I've made in a given day and what I've done, then I get to the end of the day feeling good. And it's like in both situations, the reality is identical. It's just that I feel differently about the situation and I feel way better when I choose to feel satisfied with what I've done rather than beating myself up that I didn't work hard enough. Some people will say at this point, oh, but like if you're dissatisfied, then you'll be more likely to work the next day and work harder. I'm like, nah, I'm really not. Like I feel like every day is a new day. And on the days where I feel dissatisfied with my progress, that doesn't mean that the following day I'll make loads more progress. If anything, it leads to a negative spiral where it's like, oh, I didn't do very well today. Oh, well, you know, tomorrow can be a chill day as well. And then the next day can be a chill day. Like you can choose to feel satisfied with what you're doing. You don't have to choose to feel dissatisfied with it because it doesn't really change the reality of what you've done. All right, next lesson that we have is the idea that when making decisions in our life with what we're doing, how we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with, we want to be trying to move towards things that energize us rather than the things that drain us. And I found this to be a useful mental model for, you know, let's say if I am thinking about, oh, you know, I've been invited to this party. Weird, I know. But let's say I've been invited to this party and I'm thinking, oh, I don't really feel like it. The question I ask myself is, okay, will going to the party energize me or will it drain my energy? Now, depending on the party and depending on my energy levels, there are some times where going to the party will in fact energize me and so I'll do the thing. But at other times where I know that going to the party will actually drain me and therefore I will choose not to go. And I found that usually if, you know, just that one question, will this energize me or will this drain me? And if I have the option, then going towards a thing that energizes me is always the thing that I appreciate. You know, if I'm feeling a bit tired and I'm like, oh, I could go to the gym. Will going to the gym energize me? Almost certainly. There is no way in hell that going to the gym is not going to energize me. Therefore, I will try my best to go. Similarly, filming a video like this, it's kind of a bit dark in the house. I couldn't really be bothered to film in the house. I was like, oh, maybe I'll film a video, maybe not. Then I thought, hang on, what if I film the video outside? Will that energize me? I was like, yeah, that's going to energize me. So it's great. I'm here filming this video and, you know, not really caring about the fact that there's birds in the background and like the lighting is changing and stuff because I don't think anyone really cares. But either way, I'm finding it energizing to be out here speaking to a camera as if I've got a friend, and it's great. All right, next life lesson is that fantasy fiction books are absolutely amazing. Everyone who I've recommended the Mr. series by Brandon Sanderson to has absolutely freaking loved it and has become a Brandon Sanderson fanboy for life. Would highly recommend. Mr. series is a great place to start. Stardust by Neil Gaiman, if you're looking to get into audiobooks. Neil Gaiman narrates that audiobook himself as well, and he's a sick audiobook narrator, so that's amazing. Anything by Brandon Sanderson is just absolutely next level. If you're looking to get into fantasy fiction, 100% recommend those. It's good on Audible, it's good on non-Audible or Kindle or paperback or whatever you want to read, but I tend to listen to fantasy fiction on Audible and it's amazing. Next we have the lesson of that you should, I learned this at the age of like 26 or 27 or something. I think it was my old housemate Sheen that taught me this. When you're washing your face, you should like wipe your face not with the same towel that you use in the shower, because the towel that you use in the shower goes into weird places and you don't want those weird places to go on your face because then you're going to break out in like spots and stuff. Since she told me this, I've been testing it out and I now use face towels or face tissues to wipe my face if I'm wiping my face, or if I don't have access to a face towel or face tissues if I'm out and about somewhere, I will just sort of pat dry it with my hand and then not like actually use my bath towel to dry my face. And I've actually found my skin's been a lot clearer since then. I used to have like way more spots on my nose and stuff when I use the shower towel. I sometimes use a shower towel and I'm just like, I always regret it the following day because then something always breaks out. So yeah, thank you Sheen for that tip. Use a face towel rather than a bath towel. All right, the next life lesson is that skincare is something that definitely compounds over time. Been chatting a lot to my friend Osama, who's a dermatologist based in New York. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel down below. And he and I have had a lot of chats about skincare. He basically showed me a bunch of evidence that shows that basically the younger you start caring about your skin, the more legit your skin looks over time as you age. And so now I have a proper skincare routine, which we're making a video about at some point. It'll be linked down below if it's ready by now. A skincare routine, basically sun cream, moisturizer, and retinoid are like the main things. And then cleanser is like an optional extra. So those are like the 4 parts of my skincare routine, and I have a moisturizer and sunscreen that's rolled into one, so that I only really use 2 products in the morning. Basically I cleanse and then I use the sunscreen moisturizer, and then in the evening I will use my retinoid and my moisturizer, and people have been commenting on how nice my skin looks. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing the skincare routines for about 6 months now-ish, and I feel like it's already making a difference. Quick thing, bonus little life lesson is that, to be honest, one of the main lessons that I've learned in the last 28 years is a lesson I learned 5 years ago, and that was to start my own YouTube channel. Now, if you've been interested in potentially starting your own YouTube channel, the absolute best way to do that is to take my brand new online course, which is freely available on Skillshare, called YouTube for Beginners, and thank you so much Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you haven't heard by now, Skillshare is an incredible platform platform with thousands of online classes taught by teachers from all around the world on all sorts of topics from like YouTubing, entrepreneurship, lifestyle design, interior design, tech, cooking, stoicism, productivity, loads of stuff. But the best part about Skillshare is that I have been on Skillshare since 2019, and I've got about 12 classes on Skillshare. One of them is my flagship 3-hour-long course, YouTube for Beginners, which is completely free to access. So if you are one of the first 1,000 people to hit the link in the video description, then you can check out that course completely for free, along with all of my other classes. I've got 3 classes all about productivity, which includes some of the life lessons that I've learned from previous years when it relates to productivity and just generally being a more efficient person. I've got 2 classes aimed at students for how to study for exams, and all of those are freely accessible during the 1-month free trial to Skillshare. So do please hit the link in the video description, and then you will get free access to those things. So thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. And the next life lesson is to try and wake up at the same time every day, even if you've had reduced sleep. I've been doing a bunch of research into the science behind effective sleep, listened to a bunch of Huberman Lab podcasts about this, and there's just like a lot of decent, compelling evidence that says that even if it's the weekend, try and wake up at the same time. Like the more you can train your brain and body to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time and not have lions and stuff, the more like your body knows about the adenosine buildup and the circadian clock like seems to work properly. I found this as well. Like now I wake up at like 7 a.m. every morning, really without an alarm, or wake up like a few minutes before my alarm, which feels really nice because I tend to wake up very rested. But on days where I'm like, oh, I've slept at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. because I had friends over, etc., let me have a lion. I find that weirdly I'm less energized on those days than if I had just gotten 5 or 6 hours of sleep and woken up at 7 and just gone through the day. So I am now trying to establish as much as possible, sort of consistent sleep time and wake up time. All right, lesson 15 is something I've been doing for a while now. I've mentioned this on videos, and people who have done this have said that it's changed their life, which is not having your phone by your bedside table and instead having the phone across the room on the other side, and instead just having a Kindle on the nightstand on the bedside table, so that at nighttime when I'm in bed, the only thing I can do is either read on my Kindle, which has a warm light, and not be on my phone, or just sleep, which is probably even better rather than reading on the Kindle in bed. Absolutely game-changing thing. And it also means if I set the alarm on my phone and the phone is across the room, it means I'm forced to get out of bed in order to switch my alarm off if I don't use Siri, which is bad. Like, I wish I didn't know that I could do that. Sorry if you didn't know that you could do that. But just the fact that I have to then walk across the room to switch my phone off makes a big difference to how likely I am to get out of bed at the time where I know I want to get out of bed. Next, we have the idea that if I'm struggling to get something done and I find myself wanting to press the try harder button, then I avoid this, because the try harder button never works. The try harder button is bad. The try harder button, thank you, my friend Neil Nanda, who has a great blog, neilnanda.io, link down below. But the try harder button is basically where you tell yourself that, oh, I know I need to take my working out more consistently. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try harder. I'm just going to be more disciplined. I'm just going to have more grit. I'm just going to have more determination. And in a way, those things never really work because they're broadly unsustainable. And it's very easy to sort of convince ourselves that actually we are in fact Superman, and that magically tomorrow we're just going to have like this incredible amount of willpower and discipline and stuff to just do the thing. But that's basically never going to happen. I think this is called, what's it called? Is it called the Superman effect? Is it called the superhero effect? There's some phenomenon in psychology where we ascribe superpowers to our future self, and we think, yeah, me right now doesn't have the energy to do this thing, but me tomorrow will definitely have the energy to do the thing. I'll just try harder tomorrow. And that's always the bad option. The right answer, usually in those circumstances, is to figure out how can I tweak the system or the environment to mean that I don't need to try, and this thing that I want just happens effortlessly. If you want to learn more about habit formation and you haven't read Atomic Habits, check out that video over there, which will be a link on a video on my main channel about Atomic Habits, which is a great book about how to build good habits and break bad ones. But the next life lesson is that monetizing your passions can actually be really fun. For example, I used to be a close-up magician back in the day. I used to dabble with close-up magic, and I spent the first 2 years of my magic obsession, first year, basically just practicing in front of a webcam and a mirror and stuff. But it was only when I tried to monetize it, when I actually went outside of my comfort zone to, for example, book my first restaurant gig, which was an absolute disaster, or start volunteering at a hospice, even though I did that for free, I didn't get paid for it, and also started performing in balls and parties at university. That was when my magic skills really went up to the next level, and also where my own social skills and confidence went up to the next level, because now I had to go up to groups of people at a party or a ball and say, hey, do you want to see a magic trick? And there's something really, really scary about that. But there's also something exhilarating about it. So adding the element of monetizing this hobby of mine made the entire hobby a little bit more fun. Similarly, I was into web design back in the day, and I monetized the hell out of my web design hobby, made money through making websites, and in a way, the fact that I was making money through it made the thing itself more fun. Now, crucially, I'm not saying you have to monetize all of your hobbies. There seems to be this anti-monetizing movement going on in the world. If you don't want to monetize your hobbies, that's totally fine. You can do you. But I have found that generally, monetizing hobbies either A, helps me make more money, and we know that making money is good for financial independence and financial freedom, which then gives us the autonomy to do what we want rather than what we have to do and being a slave to our employer necessarily. But also, it just sort of makes things a little bit more fun. But the next lesson is the caveat there, which is that actually sometimes, and this is where I agree with the anti-monetization sentiment, sometimes actually monetizing your passions, monetizing your hobbies can in fact take some of the fun away from them. I've spoken to a bunch of YouTubers who really enjoyed making YouTube videos when they were part-time YouTubers, when it wasn't their full-time gig. But then when they switched to doing it full-time, suddenly it becomes a job. And when it's the thing that you do for money, this is, I was reading this good book called What Money Can't Buy, the moral limitations of markets, which is all about, this idea of when money becomes a motive in stuff, it crowds out other more noble intentions. Like if you could pay for organs to be donated to you, that would be a real problem. Bunch of examples in that book, which are super interesting. But I think the way of resolving this conundrum is monetizing stuff is fun, but if you're relying on a passion for your income, your main reason for doing a thing is the money, then it becomes less fun. And I find that for me, and this, with this YouTube channel, for example, and that's why starting the second channel has been great, because I don't really need to worry so much about monetization and things. But even on the main channel, the more I worry about the numbers and the more I worry about monetization, the less fun it becomes to make YouTube videos. And then I wouldn't make a video like this one, which is super rambly, that's gonna do badly on the views compared to 9 passive income ideas or something like that, which I know will do well and make loads of money. But it's like, this is fun. I'm having fun doing this video, even if it doesn't perform very well. And so there's this sort of like balancing act of how much do you want to monetize your passions. If you haven't monetized them at all, I would suggest that the answer is more than 0%. But if you've tried to monetize them at 100%, you probably know you want to claw it back somewhere in the middle. As with all things, there is a sweet spot, there is a middle way. Next life lesson is that it's totally okay to leave a party without saying goodbye. Something I've been thinking about a lot recently around what does it mean to be retired? And, combining a bunch of stuff that I've read and thought about, I feel like retirement is basically 3 things. Naval Ravikant would say that retirement is when you are not sacrificing today for the hope of a better tomorrow. Now, if that's happening, then it means you're retired. And broadly, I think there's 3 ways of doing that. The first one is when you just make so much money that you can just be retired because you don't have to work anymore. The second one is if you spend so little money that the amount you make just makes you passively get by without having to work. And the third one is where the work that you're doing, you're loving it so much that you would choose to do it even if you weren't being paid for it. And what I'm trying to do is some kind of combination of all 3 of those modes of operation. And if I can try and do work that I really enjoy, that I would do even if I didn't get paid for it, and also make money and also lower my expenses, then that is basically me being retired. So the next life lesson is the idea that we should try and enjoy each day on its own merit rather than enjoying each day as a stepping stone to something greater. Now, I used to see this in medical school quite a lot, where people would be like, medical school is really hard and it's like really dry and boring and stuff, but once I become a doctor, then life will be fun. And they generally find that when they become a doctor, life is a lot less fun than life was in medical school. My friends doing management consultancy and stuff have this as well, that, it sucks right now, but I'll get that promotion six months from now. And while that may be true, I think there is a way that you can change the mindset to actually just try and enjoy the journey in the present moment. I've been reading a bunch of stuff around like spirituality and the power of now and things like that, around how like life is lived in the present moment. It's never lived in the past or in the future. The way I try and think is that my aim is to enjoy each day on its own merit, not just enjoy each day because this day was good because it helped me work towards my goals. It's like, no, this day was good, and as a side effect, I also happen to work towards my goals. That kind of vibe. All right, next we have the idea of social initiative. Now this comes from the idea that like broadly everyone is friendly, but you have to go first. In occasions where I have taken social initiative, I have been the one to organize an event or to invite friends over for a board games night or to make the first move in a romantic kind of whatever. There is a level of vulnerability that you have to open yourself up to showing social initiative. But whenever I've done that, I've always felt like, oh wow, this is amazing. Like this thing that has just happened, has been organized, would not have been organized had I not taken the social initiative. And so this is a lesson I'm trying to take forward into the next year as well. Like, where can I take more social initiative? How can I take social initiative in my kind of intentional default relationship time? Can I organize a group holiday with the lads? Can I organize a little road trip with friends? Can I organize a camping trip? Haven't really done a camping trip before, but that could be fun. Like, where can I show social initiative so that I can ultimately increase the amount of quality relationships, the amount and the depth of quality relationships in my life. Relatedly, the next life lesson that I think I came across from Clay Christensen's book, book and article, How Will You Measure Life, is the fact that most, quote, successful people tend to chronically underinvest in their relationships, in their personal relationships. And what he says in the book is like really interesting. I think he's like a Harvard Business School professor or something like that. And he talks about how his class of however many it was MBA graduates, they were all like super smart and in like super high-flying careers and successful by any traditional metric that you would use in the world. But at their like 30-year reunion, loads of them seemed to be depressed, a bunch of them seemed to be like separated from their families, had never seen their kids, a bunch of them were in prison, and no one ever sets out at the start of their careers to end up in prison or end up estranged from their family or end up like divorced or whatever. But somehow it happens. And what he tries to explore in the book is like, what were the key moments, the key inflection points at which these smart, bright people with promising futures ahead of them started to go towards a path that seemed particularly unhappy or illegal. And one of his conclusions is that a lot of that comes from a failure to underinvest in relationships, underinvest in social contact and stuff. The thing that he says, which I think is really good, and one thing I'm trying to remind myself more of, the thing with work is that work leads to very tangible benefits immediately. Like, I know that when I work for an extra hour on whatever, it will help me make more money, or it will increase the word count on my book, or whatever. But putting that same effort into relationships does not have an immediate payoff. And in a way, his argument is that really you want to treat friendships, relationships, if you're using this sort of terminology, as like depositing into a savings account or an investment account, where you don't expect to see the return right now. You expect to see the return 20 years from now when you need a friend for something, or something like that, if you're going to view it in those sorts of instrumental terms. And there's something about viewing kind of investing in friendships as akin to the money example of investing in a kind of bank account or a savings account, that, you know, that quite vibes with me, because it helps me realize that actually investing into this is really good, even if I don't see the tangible return right now of the fact that I'm making more money as a result of this decision. All right, next life lesson is that I tend to feel way more energized when I've done some kind of exercise, usually in the morning. And the next one is that the sting of rejection is usually way better than the pain of regret. So shoot your shot. You gotta shoot the shot. All right, next we have, I can't remember where I came across it. Someone I was speaking to said that when they're kind of procrastinating, they look through Amazon and Goodreads and look at the 1-star reviews of their favorite books. And there's something about that that's very therapeutic, because A, it helps you see that people don't have taste. And B, it helps you realize that even the books that you think are absolutely freaking amazing, like the best things in the world, they also have their haters. They also have their 1-star reviews. They also have like people that don't seem to like them. I think this is something I'm gonna have to inoculate myself against as, you know, I make more and more progress on my book, and as it gets closer to the release date, which is still absolutely ages away, so don't worry. It's that, like, some people are gonna think it's crap, and there's not much I can do about it. All I can do is just show up with my own authentic truth and try and write something that I think is interesting and some people would find useful, but it can't be useful to everyone. It can't be interesting for everyone. So I find this tip of reading 1-star reviews to be really interesting, and I've done it a few times. It's quite therapeutic. It's quite nice. Loads of people, for some reason, just leave 1-star reviews because the book didn't arrive on time. And so they blame, you know, they don't realize the effect it has on the author to leave a 1-star review on an Amazon page, and they just think that, oh, I'm complaining to Amazon. But anyway, that's a good little technique that I've started applying to my life recently. Right, next life lesson is that where possible, I find it's useful to travel on trains, because trains are a great place to get work done. Because trains are like kind of like time traveling. You get on a train and you're sort of doing the same thing that you would be at home on your desk. And so before you know it, you're at your location. So it's like you've sort of time traveled or like teleported to your location, because like, damn, I'm in Edinburgh now and I've just made book progress for the last 4 hours on this train. So trains are sick. And then the final life lesson is, as always, journey before destination. That's a sick line, by the way, from the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. It's really all about the journey. But there is no journey without the destination. But once you've set a destination, at that point you can kind of forget about it and just focus on the journey, focus on enjoying the present moment. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. See you around. Bye-bye.